Hi, friends, Gene Valentino, and welcome to another episode of Gene Valentino's Grassroots Truthcast. Each week, we present interesting guests and characters from all walks of life. We try to reach out into the community and apply what's going on in real life to the political situation, the social situation, the economic situation, or just the situation. And we're going to be talking with Pastor Austin Huggins from Mount Zion Bible Church here in Pensacola, Florida. Pastor Huggins comes to us with a very interesting background. His life experiences is what caused me to want to rely on a friend of mine to have the two of us meet here today to talk to you about not only what's going on locally, but what's going on in the world. He's had some interesting experiences in Nigeria, and we're going to single that out as one of the issues in his life that I think you'll find very interesting. We're going to do all that with Pastor Huggins right after this. Hi, friends. Gene Valentino. Are you tired of those cold sore outbreaks caused by the herpes virus? Discover Herplex, the natural homeopathic remedy that works with your body's immune system. Unfortunately, herpes is not curable. With Herplex, you can relieve systems that help prevent future outbreaks safely and effectively without the side effects of these traditional medications. Their patented formula helps your immune system produce more interferon, targeting the outbreaks at the source. Get back to feeling like your old self again. Visit buyherplex.com/Gene today and save 50%. 50% on your first order using discount code GENE50. That's Gene50. But hurry, this discount is exclusive to my listeners and won't last long. You have nothing to lose, as Herplex offers a 100% satisfaction guarantee. Let's conquer herpes together and do it naturally. Buy herplex.com/Gene. Hi, friends. Welcome back to Grassroots Truthcast. My guest this week is Pastor Austin Huggins from Mount Zion Bible Church here in Pensacola, Florida. Yeah, it's a local pastor, local church, but the story is worldwide and the experience is even grander. Pastor, thanks for joining us here today. I really appreciate your time.
So good to be here. Thanks, Gene.
One of the things that interested me when we had the chance to talk was the experiences you had. Now, you came out of the military, you were working in sonar in a submarine.
Yeah.
And after that experience, you dealt with the pain of and stresses of a beloved mother who was suffering,
That's right.
and she had passed, and obviously that took its toll on you. We all have experiences in life that build upon what we become.
Right.
There's an old saying, to understand a person is to understand where they're coming from. And I found where you're coming from is quite interesting. Let's take it from the beginning. Folks, don't go too far, because Pastor Huggins has a deeper story here that I know he's going to open up with. But background first. Came out of the military, sonar expert. What happened after your military service?
Yeah. So I separated at the end of 2011 with a couple of serious diseases that led to the destruction of my thyroid and a few other things that left me disabled in a few different ways. At the same time as I was separating and that diagnosis came, my mother was diagnosed with lung cancer. And so that began a series of cascading events where I left Washington State, where I had been attached to USS Connecticut, Seawolf class submarine, fast attack. And I left behind some of the military job opportunities that were there to be near my mother as she fought her battle with lung cancer. And as I myself was going through kind of a new world experience, medically speaking, than what I was used to. I'd always been healthy. Long story short, she didn't have long. It would be later in 2012 where I was working as a safety officer and environmental officer at a shipbuilding group down in Panama City, that I would get the call that the Cancer had returned. It was terminal, and the Lord ended up taking her home at 44 years old. And 1 week later, during her memorial service, my grandfather, who was like the father figure in my life, who shared Christ with me, poured into me, loved me, was wise and trustworthy, he passed a week after her. So all of a sudden, I went from this Navy man, part of a team of expert warfighters in far-flung, classified regions of the world, to all of a sudden being alone, unhealthy, and orphaned in a sense. And that's really where my life began. It was in the dark of that back bedroom where I was screaming at God at the top of my lungs one night when I came under conviction of sin for the first time in my life. I was a raging alcoholic. I lived in a very depressed state. There's probably a lot of veterans that could speak into that.
A lot of veterans could speak to that. And in fact, I wish in many ways they had better nurturing and guidance. We have a run going here with Grassroots Truthcast, and we're focusing on a lot of veterans from different walks of life, each of whom is suffering something.
Mhm.
There's it's not just PTSD, it's some of the experiences that are just flawed in the system. But back on point, you came out of there, you moved toward the ministry. How'd you end up in Pensacola?
Yeah, well, that's kind of part of the narrative. When I'll pick back here, when that night all that took place, uh, I changed literally overnight. And none of the story makes any sense whatsoever, unless you're able to grab hold of the fact that I went from one kind of person to literally the next day, a totally different kind of person. The Lord had convicted me of sin, saved me, transformed me, changed me, and I lost all my friends in 2 weeks. And
You mean they distanced themselves or they died on you?
well, the family had died on me. My friends left me due to distance. If you could imagine a wild party guy
Yeah,
all of a sudden trying to preach Christ to you every 12 seconds,
yeah.
that's a whiplash for some people. And but that was my life. And I ended up moving from Panama City to be underneath the mentorship of a man I had met in Gulf Breeze. And so that started bringing me over that direction.
Okay. And then you morphed into Mount Zion Church here.
He was originally on staff there
I
at
see.
Mount Zion's Chapel Library, our
Okay.
literature arm.
And let's jump ahead to when you were taking on the missionary work,
hmm
such as Nigeria's trips you talk about.
It was in that same network of men that a man by the name of Joe Jackowitz in 2017 took me under his wing into a work that had begun back in the 90s into Nigeria. And so in 2017, I was there for the first time while doing missions work.
What did you experience? I mean, going to Nigeria on a mission is very nice from an outsider's point of view, but sometimes the dynamics of what goes on over there, there's some missionaries that never returned home.
That's right.
What happened?
Well, for context, I had been around the world. I had been to Japan, Guam, South Korea. I had done mission work in places like Philippines and Nepal and elsewhere. But Nigeria, I mean, there's nothing like Nigeria. Nigeria is a world all of its own. And just for context, 230 million people, the most populous nation on the continent. The city of Lagos, where we were getting started, 22 million people,
Wow.
compared to New York's 8.1 million people.
Yeah.
So you have a mass of humanity living on top of each other. All the mosquitoes carry malaria, and so the birth rates and the loss of life are high. Criminal activity is very, very high and off the charts. Corruption runs all throughout at all levels. I mean, I'm sure a number of your listeners get those emails from Nigeria trying to scam them.
Was this government-based work or was this missionary church-based work?
Completely missionary church based.
Uh-huh. And what were you going there to hand out Bibles, preach the Lord's word, reconstruct some village structures, as they often do? What was your focus?
So pretty much the ethos that wraps up a whole lot of what I do is when Christ said in the scriptures, freely you have received, freely give.
Mm.
And so we print books by the thousands, tracts, booklets, theological resources, helps that ministries and churches and believers in the third world just simply do not have access to. We take for granted we can reach on the shelf. We can go to a schooling and a university, check out what we don't have. We can go online and read it online. But over there, if they were to get a physical hard copy of a book, the price to get it across the pond is just totally out of reach. So we will teach, we'll train pastors, we plant churches, we extend this resource by the thousands, give it away for free. We take a lot of questions, we train men up, we come along beside them for the long haul. These are men, some of which we've known for many, many, many years.
Is this drug lord based community governance or warlord based activity? Do you find freedom of government, freedom of commerce, and mobility, or did you feel confined, restricted, and therefore in fear?
So on paper, yeah, there's freedom. If you understand anything about the tribal identities that make up the context and the radical Islam that exists there, along with the criminal activity and opportunist, I don't go outside walking down the street. You know,
Really?
no. When I show up, the moment I'm getting out of the airport, I'm getting with the brethren in the church. They really envelop me, and I only go where they tell me to go, and I don't go where they don't say go.
So you're going there to see a church community in advance. I mean, they know you're coming.
Oh yes,
Okay.
yes.
And you're staying with them presumably a few weeks. And what are you doing when you're there?
Yeah, yeah. Normally I stay in the homes with the brethren. I try to live like they live. I come alongside. We're usually doing a lot of evangelistic outreach. We'll go into the campuses. We will bring the gospel to the students there. We'll distribute literature that'll continue to teach long after we've left. We will go and hold large conferences free of charge. And in the words of my Nigerian brethren, that's a shock because nothing in Nigeria is free.
Yeah.
And so we come to push back against one powerful dynamic. There is a brand of falsehood and kind of silver tongue salesmanship that has come over from America into the religious world of Nigeria. And when that mixes with African mysticism, the byproduct is a noxious, toxic gas that really spreads throughout the religious context there. And our job really is to push back culturally and societally in a religious context to give a worldview that's expressly biblical because the one they have isn't.
But you become put at risk, like many Christians have been. We've seen lately in the news just how many Christians have been killed based on this is what I call real persecution
Mhm.
that is being imposed on Christians by as a target
Yeah.
by who are these? The Sunnis, the Shiites, the radical Islamists? Who's coming after Christians in Nigeria?
So, with all the recent international attention, it's important to realize this has been going on for over 2 decades. This is not a new event. With Islam coming in, especially in the north, and entities like Boko Haram coming in, and the morph that happens when ISIS was in power, and then you have ISWAP in that context.
Stands for?
ISWAP, it's the Islamic State of West Africa, I think province, or
Okay.
I need to go Google it and double check.
That's okay.
Um, but there's been a progressive push from the northern regions down through the south. The Fulani herdsmen, which are Islamic and Muslim by culturally, are are more enticed, more uh, riled up, as it were. And so the danger increases because it's traveling further south down into the Middle Belt regions. I mean, in 2022, for instance, of the 6,000 Christians that were martyred for their faith in the world, and this is 6,000 not due to disease or famine or secondary causes or a byproduct of war, that were specifically targeted for their faith in Christ. Of those 6,000, 5,000 of them were in Nigeria in 2022. And we see those numbers increasing. I believe we were over 7,000 now just this past year. So the attacks are coming from Islam, radical Islam, Islamic Fulani, Islamic Boko Haram, Islamic sometimes even officials which purposefully look the other way to allow stuff to happen. There's criminal activity, tribal terrorism, but it's largely Islamic.
Are there areas where white Westerners don't go? Is there? I mean, is this? Hey, walk over here this direction with us, and we'll stay out of this borough.
Yeah, there are large swaths where you can't go. There are entire states like white Westerners are not going into Borno State. You know, they're not going outside the city into Kaduna State. They're not going into the Plateau State, at least not publicly, and at least not with drawing any attention to
And
themselves.
what is the reason for that? Is it just the hate for Westerners and the desecration they intend of Christians, or is this a? Do you think there's a deeper state behind this? Is there a China, Russian, deep state motive to spur on a culture with the Nigerians as weak, insensitive, vulnerable individual sect of people that could be easily manipulated to take on the Western whites?
Well, a lot of people can be easily manipulated. A lot of people are paid money and incentivized to be able to do what they do. Now, being able to trace every network of dark money, I don't know. I know that there are armed shipments that do come in from Libya through the north. The border of Nigeria is very porous, and you can't think of Nigeria as one nation. Historically, it's a group of different tribes like Igbo and Yoruba and Hausa and so on. And those tribal boundaries extend beyond national boundaries. And so you'll have entire communities, especially the more nomadic ones like the Fulani, that'll move across state boundaries like it's nothing.
What what is the concern for Nigeria being labeled in particular as a, I don't consider it a narco state at this point like we'd call Venezuela or Colombia.
Sure.
How would you paint the picture of what Nigeria is today?
That's a multifaceted question. It's probably a difficult one.
Yeah.
I would say it's a nation struggling to find its own identity collectively. It's a nation where a lot of people believe it would be better ran in separate groups, not as one single entity. You have powerful, radical, dominating Islam, especially to the north, that is not content until they have instituted Sharia law and established their own Muslim governance. And then you have other groups that are trying to separate themselves from that.
So there's you can identify a Muslim presence?
Oh,
These,
undeniably.
I mean, as an identifiable force like the Islamic Jihad element that intends to kill white Westerners?
Look, about half the nation is Islam. Half the nation is Muslim.
Yeah.
I mean, so many of the people in government, they are themselves Islamic. I mean,
Well, the Christians that are there must be up against a difficult confrontation of conflict just getting guests like you to come into the nation. I mean, they must be aware that they're going to have to protect you in one way, shape, or form, since uh, the Muslims, the Islamic jihadists, are so anti-America in the first place.
well, if we've seen anything, there's regional dynamics within Nigeria. It's so vast. So, for instance, there are oil executives that'll come into like Victoria Island and Lagos
Okay.
Island, but they stay in their compounds and they stay localized in that area. People come in and travel through Lagos, but if they're wise, they're with locals who show them where not to go, what streets not to go in. I know a couple guys that do get around, although they're very, very few. There are just regions you don't go. There are regions where you know there is a Muslim dominance, a violent extremism. They're in power, and if you're going to make it around Nigeria, you need to know the Christians there. You need to know the saints. You need to be enveloped. You need to have guidance and people who are going to point you in the right direction.
Can you see an American presence in Nigeria that's working specifically at trying to improve or reform the nation? Or are we as Americans being taken for fools again to take advantage of our assets and our benevolence and then once we leave, they're back to their old regime, their old ways of killing. Are we accomplishing anything, is what I'm trying to say.
That's a really good question. I don't know if I'm the best person to answer. From my perspective, I believe in limited, this is my military history, this is me as an American.
Yeah.
I believe in limited national military presence inside of some of these nations, especially Islamic ones. You're not going to change the culture. But Nigeria is a unique aspect. And me as a pastor, I'm looking at something real time, real faces, real data. And so there's a dynamic that I have there that distinguishes it. Now, for instance, when you look at when the Fulani come through, say there's a village, they will burn down your crops, they will persecute, they will kidnap your daughters, kidnap you, hold them for ransom. That's what they want to do with a white Westerner. If they see a white Westerner, those are dollar signs. They want to kidnap him, take him out into the jungle for 2 or 3 months until they get their money. Maybe I come back alive, maybe they don't. Maybe she comes back alive, maybe they don't. But once they've displaced an entire village out of its tribal land, it becomes what's called an IDP camp. Now, there are hundreds of these around.
An IDP camp.
Internal displacement peoples, internally displaced peoples camp. Now, all it is basically a squatter's huddle. They don't have food, they don't have resources. What little bit they do, they're eating dried rice. Children are dying. They have ulcers from malnutrition. They have no way to defend themselves. I mean, these are our brothers and sisters in Christ being killed. And there's not just one IDP camp like this, there are hundreds. Now, when I speak to the local
You're putting
leaders,
yourself at risk doing that yourself.
there's a limit to what churches can do. There's a limit to what, look, my responsibility is to get the gospel into Nigeria and to saturate that land with sound literature, with biblical truth, because when I met with those pastors that are living that world, men who have looked Boko Haram in the eyes and preached Christ to them, and by nothing less than a miracle of God made it out to tell the story, who have gone and preached until Fulani are converted to Christ, and they're trained up and then turned around and sent back out as missionaries to their own people. These people, when I ask them, what is the number one thing we can do for you? We can pray for you. We can provide you. We can send you. The men look me in the eye and say, pray for courage. Pray for courage. A Nigerian, not asking me for money, not asking me for provision, not asking for me to run in with the world's resources or America's resources at my arms. The number one thing he wants is for God to grant him and the men with him courage to continue to penetrate those Islamic regions, saturate it with the gospel, and watch them one by one be changed and transformed, just like the Apostle Paul was and brought to Christ.
These are Nigerian military defense people or
Pastors,
like yourself.
yes.
So it's really a grassroots sort of mission.
It is. Now, if there was any involvement, I would say one of the most important things to be done is there's nowhere to put those displaced people. You put them in a city, they have no infrastructure, they've got no land. You need to put them back into their villages. You need to give them access to their tribal land or they're going to die. Their children are going to die. It's not just, if somebody hears this and says, I'm going to find the first NGO I can, send a bunch of money to it to go feed them, you need to be aware it may not make it to those kids. There's so much corruption. If you're not on the ground, if you're not actually being able to look officials in the face or look pastors in the face and actually network the transfer of those resources, you can have zero confidence that it's going to arrive at the intended destination. So I'm speaking, there's the military government side, that's a whole other conversation. I'm speaking here in terms of the pastor, missionary, gospel side.
Does the military government side sanction and bless your presence when you're there? Do they provide you any support or cover for the adversaries that you may not be aware of?
Who am I? No, they probably don't even know my name.
They don't even know you. Well, you're certainly at risk. Folks, we're talking with Austin Huggins, pastor of Mount Zion Bible Church here in Pensacola, Florida. A lot of local stories in his ministry locally, but today's focus is his missionary work that is being done worldwide. We focused on part of that, which is just Nigeria at this time, and we'll stay focused on that for a little longer. So what's your pathway of accomplishment? What do you deem to be a successful trip? And how the heck do you get out of there and get home?
Yeah, well, one, by the grace of God. Two, by making much of the resources that I have. And the greatest resource I have in material things is the men that I know and that I love and that I trust and I've watched grow and I've labored with for years. I mean, when you've been in politics,
Yeah.
how valuable is a trustworthy man?
In politics, it's invaluable. It's beyond value. It's so valuable.
Then I have gold upon gold and silver upon silver
Wow.
because I've got handfuls of men that are vetted, known, trusted. I've been in their homes. I've watched them speak to their children and their wives. I've lived with them. I would trust these men with my credit card. Now, that is rare to be said in a land like that, but that's what the gospel does to a man. And when we talk about the network of churches that we work through and the number of godly men, I have something that's really difficult to come across.
What's that?
And when we penetrate into those regions and utilize those trustworthy men, trustworthy navigated resources to ensure where we can go, put eyes on target and make sure it's going to where it needs to go, that's what we're trying to make use of. I work not only with First Love Ministries and Chapel Library, but also close with Heart Cry Missionary Society and a few others. But when we begin to bring resources in whatever fashion that looks like and in whatever time frame that looks like, uh, we're going to make sure it arrives for the help and for the aid of those who are actually hurting and actually in a difficult
And as
situation.
a result, Pastor, anybody been killed in your inner circle, your fellow ministers, your worker bees on the mission with you, or the Nigerians that put you up in their benevolence? Has anything adversary happened to them?
I mean, we've been pulled over and robbed, by people masquerading as police officers. I've been in situations where the car got stuck and we had a mob beating on the car with their fists because they saw my white face and they were trying to get money from us. And there happened to be a random police officer nearby. He could have cared less. They could have carried me out dead. He wouldn't have cared. But I brought him over. I handed him a track. I said, "Sir," I said, "Well, all this chaos is going on around us." And I said, "Sir, if you promise to read this, this has truth that will tell you the truth about eternity, about God and Christ. If you promise to read it, I'll give it to you." And he reached into the car, he took the track, he put his hand out because he wanted some more. So I gave him some more. And he looked at the tracks, he looked at me, not knowing what would happen, and he started shouting at the guys and telling them to get away from the car. And the mob that was forming helped us get our wheel out of the rut on the side of the road.
Became your ally.
Yeah, well, we still had to
Kinda.
pay them some money, but they were willing to let us go. So, you know, I've had brothers that I've labored with who have died in the difficulty of the Nigerian environment. People die in traffic all the time. People die from diseases all the time. But where we're at is mostly in the south, stretching to the east and going up just south of the Middle Belt. We do work in other places, but that's just undisclosed. And some of those areas that we've been into, the men that I have spoken with and preached to and come alongside are men that themselves, they're scarred. They have fought. They have had loved ones killed. One girl had her sister carried off for 2 months and 3 weeks before they could finally get the ransom price up high enough to get her out of the jungles. By the time she came back, she was so PTSD'd, she had seen so much killing, she was a nervous wreck. 1 month later, after getting her back, they attacked again, broke
Wow.
through the house, came through the window with swords. The father ran off into the night and left his family, and they were taken away again.
Pastor, are any of the people around you funded through NGOs, non-government organizations? Is there a front of funding from the United States taxpayer that's funding what I would call parallel missions to help you out?
No,
No.
no,
You're totally on your own in a nation that certainly is not as civil and lacks the kind of as many problems as we have here in the States. It's relatively nil compared to what you're experiencing over there day to day.
Well, I think the response I would have to give to that is the remarkable part of this is I'm not alone. There is so many godly men and their prayers, and the resources that have been given to us have been given not through fundraising, not through, soliciting donations, but have come because the Lord puts it on the heart of the saints to give. And we go in, and I wouldn't trade the safety, the presence, and the power of the Spirit of God for 10,000 armies.
How does this passion of yours in Nigeria in particular compare to the level of concern you may or may not have with what I would call a disruptive government in the United States now? I see a victimization of many loyal, honest, uh, fear-mongering Americans that are trying to do good under what we call the Constitution of the United States of America. And at every turn, they're being demoralized with antics that do not voter fraud, uh, ballot harvesting, um, the messaging going on to um, distract and divert your attention over real issues, the taking over of our government by what I would call a deep state of activity. Um, these are not what I would call um, immigrant, radicalized migrants. This is a planned conspiracy. How much of Nigeria's involvement is using immigrants, or I would say the natives, to create a air of disruption as compared to what we Americans might feel is somewhat disruptive in our government right now?
Are you saying the presence of the Nigerian issue in American politics presently?
Yes.
Well, that's a loaded question.
Yeah.
I'll say this. Whenever President Trump said what he said on social media about getting ready to come in guns blazing, I was on the ground when that happened. I was there.
In
And
Nigeria.
I was in Nigeria.
Okay, so you just got back because he didn't say that too long ago.
Yeah. Well, when I come and when I go is kind of when it happens.
Yeah.
And I try not to advertise too much, but
Okay.
I was in some regions that weren't far from where some of the headlines were breaking within a couple hours. And I can say this, as far as the Christians on the ground are concerned, when they found out that attention was happening and there was some awareness or pressure for change, they welcomed it. They were very thankful. So when I returned to the States and I find out, I saw some news headline, I don't even know if it's true, I don't know who put it out, but that a lot of Nigerian Americans that are living in America were hotly against any involvement whatsoever from Trump in their home nation. The problem with that is they're protesting from the safety of American defense lines.
Uh-huh.
And while their own kinsmen are happily thankful, at least the Christians, that there is some attention being drawn, I'm not trying to sit here and armchair quarterback international policies. I don't know exactly what the right answer is from a governmental level. I think there's no law against doing good. I think if if the if it requires American blood to be shed on foreign soil, I'm not for that. But if there's a way to help them and put pressure and draw attention and put light where there's a lot of darkness, I can't see that as being bad. That can only be good.
Yeah. I see a lot of I see a two-part rule going on. I see part of the actions that make the 6 o'clock news. Then I always beg the question, what's going on that we don't see?
Yeah.
What's the hidden fuse that's causing the problem in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's in Nigeria with foreign adversaries of ours, which could be Russia or China. To what degree are they influencing Nigeria? Why? For the resources of Nigeria, that they need to harvest, versus whether they really want a political, economic, and physical presence in Nigeria themselves.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go into Nigeria without seeing the infrastructure the Chinese are building. And you can usually tell it's the Chinese because it's well built, you know. And but the long term is fairly visible. You know, they're buying up Nigerian real estate and they're buying Nigerian uh, infrastructure. They're building it. And so I can't imagine they're doing that just for the dollar alone,
That's
you
right.
know. But to what extent that goes, I think that goes beyond.
And that was my question today, Pastor. To what extent does that then become influencing factors of the natives, Nigerians, that that are imposing a Muslim will, a Sharia Islamic jihadist killing
Yeah.
of white Westerners? That's my concern. To what extent does Nigeria represent China's actions throughout the world? To what extent does the United States now find themselves being eaten from within by a cancer from the same foes, these same folks, Russia and China in particular? Trying to draw a distinction, trying to draw a parallel.
Yeah, and I think what makes your question complicated is not knowing for sure at those levels. I'm on the ground with the common people. I'm on the ground in the homes with the people who are just experiencing the Nigerian experience. So at the governmental level and in terms of influence, can I see, you know, entities like China there? Yes. Russia? I don't think so. I don't know. But those levels of discussions would probably better be carried out with those who have more
Well,
knowledge than me.
this has been a very interesting conversation because you're a local pastor, but you have a worldly view on some things that I'm glad we had time to let you get out there. In the last 5 minutes, do you want to share anything in particular about either your church ministry here in town and the future of your missions?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So we're going to continue to press on and do as much good as the Lord will allow us in
Give
Nigeria.
us your website.
So for our church website, it's Mount Zion, spelled out, Mount, M-O-U-N-T, Zion.org.
Okay.
Doesn't matter where you're at in the US or even outside. If you go to chapellibrary.org, you can order $20 worth of free literature every month. We will send it to you, postage paid, no charges.
All right.
Same thing with First Love Ministries. You can order books there. We'll send them to you. Um, we are thankful for the opportunity to represent the Lord's interest in the world. And as the literature continues to go out, not only here in Pensacola and around the United States, and anywhere between 60 to up to 100 nations around the globe, if you ever benefit from our literature, just remember, the Lord provided it freely, and that's why we were able to freely give it.
Folks, we've been talking with Pastor Austin Huggins from Mount Zion Bible Church in Pensacola, Florida. And while we could have spent more time on some of his good tidings he's done locally, um, he and I had the chance to focus on what was going on in his missionary work in Nigeria, which begged the question. Uh, it's not being local can be global at the same time, and it's interesting to see how you've used the ministry to help you do both. Any final thoughts for your parishioners or the public at large like to share?
No, thank you for the opportunity, Gene, to be able to come and just know that all of life, all this world is all cascading into the inevitable reality that Jesus Christ is Lord. And I pray that our listeners would take the time to search out what all that means.
Boy, I hope you are right. Guidance from a power greater than me protects we the people. And I thank you for being here today. This has been really great.
Thank you, Gene.
Pastor Austin Huggins from Mount Zion Bible Church, Pensacola, Florida. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us on another episode of Gene Valentino's Grassroots Truthcast. See you soon. Hi, friends. Gene Valentino for My Pillow. You know, this past year has been one of the hardest in My Pillow's history. It's because of you that they are making it through, though. They want to thank you for your continued support by passing on some Christmas specials to all listeners and viewers. Did you know you can get the Children's Bible Story Pillow 5-pack for $29.98, or My Slippers with a free bottle of leather protectant spray for just $39.98? Or how about the blankets, the comforters, and the duvets for as low as $25, and a blowout sale on the standard My Pillows for just $14.98? So go to mypillow.com or call 1-800-589-4706 and use the promo code. Don't forget the promo code. Use the promo code GeneV to take advantage of these wholesale prices, including standard size My Pillow, originally $49.98, now only $14.98. The queen size, $18.99, or kings, only $1 more. We know My Pillow products come with a 10-year warranty, but My Pillow has just announced that they're extending their 60-day money-back guarantee. That's right. Orders placed between now and December 25th will have a 60-day money-back guarantee extended through March 1st, 2026. Let's get on board with My Pillow. They've been there for America. Let's get there for My Pillow.